we're doing this. It's not a duet.
Billy, you wrote a good song, not a great one.
Did you guys want to record something or fight more? I'm fine either way.
Hi guys, how are you
Hi.
doing? Nice to see you.
Nice
man,
to
how
see
you
you.
doing?
I'm good, thanks. Congratulations on the series, fantastic. If it was up to me, Golden Globes all around for everybody. It's brutal. I loved it. It's
If it was up to me,
It
I
should
agree.
be up to you. I think.
Get those speeches ready because I'm sure something's going to happen soon.
Aw,
So listen, guys.
that's so sweet.
What I love so much about this series is the fact that, very much like the book, it felt so real, like I was watching a biopic.
Oh, that's
So I'm curious.
cool.
Obviously, when an actor gets to do a biopic, they have all this. They have this treasure trove of all this archive footage, that they can dive into to kind of hone their performance. I'm curious, how did you go about preparing for these specific characters because they're fictional? Did you want to keep them as fictional as possible, or did you really want to kind of find an amalgamation of different characters from the 70s that you could use without it feeling copied from anyone else?
Yeah, I think it was an amalgamation for me anyways between the book, the script, and then watching, as many videos as I could of every single artist that I could possibly think of during that time. And it wasn't, it wasn't so much that I was like mimicking anybody, but it was just the more you sort of fill your mind with these things, I feel like they just sort of are there to draw from in moments. So yeah, I think it was totally an amalgamation of all kinds of things.
Same for me. I think my knowledge of that era was very limited. I wasn't, honestly, sadly, and sad thing to admit, I wasn't overly familiar with Bruce Springsteen, but that was someone said, you should watch Bruce Springsteen. That's kind of the vibe. I was like, oh, okay. And started watching, going, yeah, no, that's kind of actually how I imagined him in the book. But at the same time, I think the pressure comes off a little bit when it's fictional because you're not tied to a specific mood or energy for each moment of the book. You're able to kind of take it on yourself and morph into whatever you need to for whenever you need to. So yeah, I think we were kind of fortunate to not have to, be tied to something. Yeah.
I actually I remember looking at a band called Fanny a lot. And I was looking at Chrissy Hind. I was looking at Debbie Harry. I was looking at Christy McVie, of course, because Karen's English in the book. But no, we would watch things together actually at Sound City. I mean, we got to rehearse at Sound City Studios, which is such an iconic recording studio, and we would, we got to watch documentaries about the studio whilst we were all there. So we just soaked ourselves in history and tried to educate ourselves as much as possible.
And in the same way, Camila, I mean, you're not actually a member of the band, but you are a member of the band in the fact that you just dedicate everything to the band. How did you kind of create your character? Because it kind of, I was thinking of things like people like Yoko Ono and Linda McCartney, who they were really dedicated, devoted to the band and gave their all. Were those the kind of people that kind of you look to for inspiration for your character?
Absolutely. I looked to inspiration for them. And also, I think for me, it was, there wasn't any like one example, kind of how Suki had these iconic kind of women that were known for this one thing. I think Yoko Ono, Linda McCartney, yes, those are all people that I watched. And I also just watched a lot of footage. I think, like we were saying, like footage for me was important in kind of getting like the essence and the movements and kind of the energy of that time. And I think what I was really curious was like that time period, right? Like people's mindsets and what they knew about addiction and what fame was like and how different it is to what we know today. I think that was where most of my energy went into, besides the basic, kind of history lesson on music and artists of the time and what was going on in the world. That was live footage was a really big help for me.
What do you think the song's about?
What do I think the song is about? What the song
what
that I
is the
wrote?
song
What do I
about?
think the song that I wrote is about? It's about starting a new life.
I don't know who I am.
It's about dreaming of something different.
Baby, baby, baby. Do you know who you are?
Don't stop.
With musicians, like they're public figures, they're beloved. So there's so much footage of bands and musicians and stuff. And like, it was really kind of a joy to like pick and choose, like, oh, this drummer has a weird grip, and like, oh, this drummer plays like this. I'm like, which ones of those things make a more interesting, like funny, kind of silly type of character like Warren, you know? Like, how can I use that?
Yeah, and for me, I feel like I watched a bunch of stuff. I saw some documentaries. I was like looking at the stance of people, like how was the bass player, his energy on stage at festivals in the 70s and things like that. And I'd take some of that, but I really wanted to kind of rely on my own musicality as well to kind of stay within myself in it and bring my own energy to, because at the end of the day, like, you know, if this band was a reality, then we would have been existing in the moment, you know?
Well, there wasn't one single person Simone Jackson was based in. I would say there was an array of iconic people she was based on. We definitely drank from Donna Summer and Diana Ross with the aesthetics, Chaka Khan as well, but in the personal aspect of it and her journey into fame, there were lesser known names and background vocalists like Linda Clifford and Claudia Lehner. They were all in the big records. You can hear them in all the big rock bands, and they were fundamental to creating the genre. And in the series, we get to see Simone be a little bit more expanded. We get to see her love life a little bit more. So that was a treasure in itself.
And for Tom, sorry, I was going to say, I imagine it was a little bit more complicated for you because a producer is kind of harder to find inspiration because we don't see as much footage of producers from that time, no?
That's true, but there are books and documentaries, and I tried to channel Quincy Jones, Berry Gordy, and Al Bell, and I also read Jerry Wexler's book, and had hung around with a lot of musicians and a few record producers back in New York when I lived there in the 70s and 80s.
And they recorded an album for the series. I'm curious, Tom, did you spend time with the producer of this album to kind of get some idea of the type of producer that you need to play for this kind of music?
No, not really. They did their thing, which they needed to do, and my thing was to portray a record producer. And because technology is so different, I asked them a few questions just because I was curious about it. But what I really discovered was that producing an album technically is very different now than it was then.
We unraveled a long time ago. We lost and we couldn't let it go. Oh my God.
Your first single, and it hits #1. How do you top that?
Yeah, you got to make an album with Blake Mills and a plethora of all kinds of huge instrumentalists as well, who worked with The Who and David Bowie and all kinds of people. That must have really the fact that you sang on that album must have really helped you to kind of hone the idea of what it would be like to release a debut album at the same time, no?
I mean, I think we got as close to the real thing as we could have in the time we had in terms of getting to practice as a band for months or a year and then getting to record a full album. So yeah, I mean, we got the sort of mini version of what
crash course.
Yeah, crash course in what that would be like.
Were you guys actually musicians before the show? Because obviously they recorded an album for the series, and then you've got to play it live. Was that easy for you? Were you kind of had you studied music before? Had you played instruments before, or was that kind of more difficult than the acting side of things?
Yeah, I played the piano since I was 5 years old, and I was a drummer from like middle school on. But I was never professionally a musician, so like actually playing songs like with a band, like really high stakes, big crowd, a ton of 3 camera setups, like this was very new. So having like the whole pandemic, like a year and a half to really prepare and not only be able to play the songs, but look really comfortable, just like throwing them down, was honestly a huge blessing.
Obviously this isn't a biopic, but if you could be given a role in a biopic, can you imagine anybody that you could play? I mean, you mentioned there Debbie Harry, Suki. I could actually see that working really well.
I would do like a Serge Gainsbourg and a Jane Birkin biopic.
Oh, I would love to do that. I don't look like Jane Birkin, so I can't get away with it. But you would give amazing Jane Birkin vibes.
I would love that.
I said the other night that I really want to play Sophia Loren in something. That she's got such an incredible story that I feel like isn't talked about enough, and there could be an incredible biopic on her. But I also am just.
I would also love to do Pattie Boyd, who was in a love triangle with George Harrison and Eric Clapton. And you know, she left. Yeah, she left Clapton for Harrison. That would be a really fun one to do.
Oh God. Any suggestions?
Yeah, for me, I'd have to say Quincy Jones.
But you can't think of anyone?
Are they doing a Donna Summer biopic? I don't know.
There you go. That would be perfect.
Hector Lavoe, the salsa singer from New York, the Puerto Rican dude. That's like the dream role. Someday, this is gonna happen.
I'm not sure. Personally, I'm not sure. I'd have to think on that.
Well, listen, I think you've made a wrap. So sadly, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck with the series. It's going to go down really, really well. And fingers crossed, like I said, for those Golden Globes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.
All the very best. Thanks for speaking to me.
We can make a good thing.